Michael Shikha Niketan Higher Secondary Government Sponsored Co-ed English Medium School has taken an excellent initiative of teaching and make our students learn day-to-day lessons through audio and video in our YouTube channel. Teachers of all the subjects are working hard to enhance these online classes in the midst of this pandemic situation. It is a request to all the teachers, students and guardians to click the bell icon and subscribe our channel.
Hello students, today I am going to start unit 4.4, that is acid, base and salt. Okay. At the beginning of this chapter we have to learn about Arrhenius concept. And according to Arrhenius concept, what is an acid? An acid is a chemical compound which can produce H plus ion in presence of water. Okay, what I have told, that acid is a chemical compound which can produce H plus ion in presence of aqueous medium. That means if I consider HCl as an acid, then in aqueous medium, that means in presence of water, it will give us H plus ion and Cl minus ion. Okay, and we know that H plus ion in presence of H2O, it can produce actually H3O plus, that means hydroxonium ion or hydronium ion. Okay, so HCl can produce H3O plus or H plus in presence of water, so we can conclude HCl as an acid. Okay, so in this way we have many acids, like we have H2SO4 because it can also produce H plus ion in presence of water. We have acetic acid, that is CH3COOH. We have HNO3. Okay, and many other acids we know their names, and all of them can produce H3O plus ion in presence of water. Okay, so this is according to Arrhenius. Now according to Arrhenius, what are the bases? Now bases are the chemical compound which can produce OH minus ion. Okay, for acids this is H plus or H3O plus, and for bases they are OH minus ion, that is hydroxide ions, and obviously it also will happen in presence of water medium. Okay, so that means if I want to say that NaOH is a base, then I have to show that in presence of water NaOH can produce Na plus and OH minus ion. Okay, so due to the production of this OH minus ion, we can say that NaOH is a base. So like NaOH, we have CaOH whole 2, that is calcium hydroxide, we have potassium hydroxide, we have ammonium hydroxide as the examples of bases. Okay, now next point is, what are the strong acids and weak acids, as well as strong bases and weak bases. Number 1 is strong acids. Okay, the acids which completely dissociate, they are known as the strong acids, like HCl. HCl can dissociate completely and it can produce H plus ion, or you can say as H2 plus ion and Cl minus as well as. Okay, but the dissociation will be complete dissociation. We can also say H2SO4 as the example of strong acid, because it also dissociates completely to produce sulfate ion and obviously H2O plus ion. Okay, and other common strong acid like HNO3 we have, and these are the most common examples of strong acid. Okay, HCl, H2SO4 and HNO3. Next, if we want to say about the weak acid, then what can I say? Weak acids are the acids those who cannot dissociate completely. Okay, weak acids are the acid those who cannot dissociate completely, like H2CO3. This is carbonic acid. Okay, carbonic acid which cannot dissociate completely. Okay, so that is why I have given a equilibrium sign here. So H2CO3 will also give us H plus ion along with carbonate ion, that is CO3 2 minus, but the dissociation will not complete. Okay, so that is why this equilibrium sign is to be given here. And apart from strong acid and weak acid, we also have strong bases and weak bases too. What are the strong bases? As I have said in case of strong acid, similar is applicable for the strong bases too, that the base which can dissociate completely, they are the strong base. That means NaOH, KOH and CaOH whole 2, then magnesium hydroxide, MgOH whole 2. These are the examples of strong bases as they completely dissociate and can produce OH minus ion. Okay, and what do you mean by weak bases? Weak base means the bases those who cannot dissociate completely. Okay, we have example like NH4OH. Ammonium hydroxide is an example of weak base which cannot dissociate completely, and that is why I have given an equilibrium sign here to show the incomplete dissociation. Okay, and for NaOH, for the strong bases and strong acids, we give the unidirectional sign. Okay, the one-way direction or the one-way dissociation will be happen here, but in case of weak acids and weak bases, the equilibrium sign we have to give here. Next we have to know about the indicators. Now what are indicators? Indicators are basically some organic substance. Okay, organic substance, or you can say as organic complex, which can change their colors, in presence of some specific concentration of H plus and OH minus ion. Okay, so first we can say indicators as the organic complex, and secondly we can say that they can change their colors in presence of some fixed concentration of H plus or OH minus ion. Okay, so in presence of some specific H plus ion concentration, it can show one kind of color, but if you change the concentration of H plus ion or you change the medium from H plus ion to OH minus ion, then it will also change its color. Okay, to show the different concentration. So these are known as the indicators. Now we have basically two types of indicators. One is common acid base indicator, to show the medium is acidic or basic, whether it is acidic or basic we can use them, and they are commonly available as two. So that is why they are known as common acid base indicator. And second one is universal indicator. Okay, so I am telling on this a little later, but first I want to give some examples like litmus. Litmus is an example of indicator which is basically a kind of dye which we can get from plants. Okay, and we use this litmus over the paper, and from that we can get litmus paper. Okay, and by the change of the color in different concentration of H plus and OH minus, we can use this litmus paper can change its color to show whether the medium is acidic or basic. Okay, so first example is litmus. Next one is a kind of organic acid which is known as phenolphthalein. Okay, phenolphthalein. This can also change its color in presence of acid or base. So this is a type of organic acid. Next one is an organic pigment which is known as methyl orange. Okay, and all these three, that means not the litmus paper, litmus, phenolphthalein and methyl orange, all these three are the examples of common acid base indicator. Okay, and there are no separate examples for the universal indicator, we can call them as universal indicator. Basically, universal indicator is a mixture of different indicators, and obviously they have to mixed in a fixed ratio to get this one. And the speciality of a universal indicator is that it can show different colors in different range of H plus ion. Okay, whereas we can show different color only in acidic medium or in basic medium. If we use this common acid base indicator, it will show us just the color in presence of acid, or if we change the acid from to base, then only it can change its color. But if we keep the substance as acid, but if we differ the concentration of the acid, there will be no change of color. But in case of universal indicator, in different concentration of acid and bases, it can change its color. Okay, so this is the speciality of universal indicator. But in general, in common purpose, we can use this first type indicator, that is common acid base indicator. Okay, your book where we can show the different colors shown by the common acid base indicators in different kinds of medium. Okay, if we take neutral type of medium, we can see that litmus is showing purple color. Okay, if we take neutral type of medium, litmus will show us purple color. If we take acidic medium, then litmus will show red color. And if we take basic medium, litmus will show blue color. Okay. Next, if we take phenolphthalein as the indicator, it is basically colorless. Okay. So, in neutral medium, phenolphthalein also will remain colorless, and in acidic medium, it also does not show any color. That means also it will remain as colorless. But in basic medium, it will show us a slight pink color. Okay, and if we take methyl orange as the indicator, then neutrally this is orange in color, as the name is methyl orange. So basically its own color is orange, and in acid medium it can show a light pink color, pink shade, and in basic medium it shows yellow color. Okay, so by seeing these different type of colors, we can indicate or we can understand what is the medium. Okay, if I use phenolphthalein as the indicator, and if I observe that the medium or the liquid becomes pink in color, I can say that there is some base within the container, and if it remains colorless as it was, then I can say that the chemical within the container was acid. Okay, so in this way we can differentiate whether it is acid or base, but we can't determine the actual H plus ion concentration, okay, or actual the OH minus ion concentration. So for that purpose we have to use universal indicator. Okay, and apart from this, we have a very common indicator, that is turmeric. Okay, turmeric also can act as a common indicator. In presence of acid, it shows basically pink color, and in presence of base, it becomes brown. Okay, and generally we know that turmeric is yellow in color. So this is one very common and also natural indicator. Okay, so this is all about the indicators and their colors. The next thing of this subunit, that is limitations of Arrhenius theory. What are the limitations of Arrhenius theory? Number one limitations is we have told that a compound, we can say it as the acid if it can produce H plus ion in presence of aqueous medium, okay, or in presence of water. Or I have told that a compound is called as a base if it can produce a OH minus ion in presence of water. So water is an obvious medium to explain Arrhenius theory, but it is not true always. HCl, we know that HCl can itself produce H plus ion and Cl minus ion, isn't it? or NaOH. NaOH can itself produce Na plus ion and OH minus ion. So it is not necessary to add water if we want to explain the acidic property of H plus or the basic property of NaOH. So it is not true actually that we need always water to explain the acidic or basic property of a compound. Number 2 is there are many other acids and bases which do not produce H plus ion and OH minus ion respectively, like sulfur dioxide, that is SO2, or carbon dioxide, that is CO2. They are acidic in nature, but they can't produce any H plus ion. Okay, and we have NH3, which is basic in nature, but it can't produce any kind of OH minus ion, but it is a basic. So there are many compounds which cannot produce H plus ion or OH minus ion, but they are acid in nature or they may be basic in nature too. So it is not always obvious that an acid has to produce H plus ion or a base has to produce OH minus ion to show its property. Okay, so these are the two fallacies or two drawbacks, or we can say two limitations of Arrhenius theory. We will learn about the chemical properties of sulfuric acid, that is H2SO4. First property is its acid property. Okay, and as an acid, H2SO4 can react with a base like sodium hydroxide to produce sodium bisulfate, or we can say sodium hydrogen sulfate or sodium sulfate. Okay, we know that H2SO4 has two replaceable hydrogen atoms. Okay, these two hydrogen atoms are replaceable. Okay, so that is why we can replace them with a metal. And in the first case, as we can see that here in one hydrogen atom is present within the salt and another hydrogen atom is replaced by the sodium atom. So that is why the salt is sodium hydrogen sulfate or sodium bisulfate, and this is a type of acid salt. Okay, as within the salt there is one hydrogen atom, there is one acidic hydrogen atom. So that is why we can say the salt as acid salt. Okay, and in the next step we can see that here the two replaceable hydrogen atoms are replaced and two sodium atoms are present there. So this kind of salt is known as normal salt, where there is no acidic hydrogen atom. So if there is any kind of acidic hydrogen atom within the salt, we can tell them as acid salt, and if there is no such hydrogen atoms, we can say them as normal salt. Okay, so these two reactions can show the acidic property of H2SO4. Next two reactions also show the acidic property of H2SO4. We should know that if we take a carbonate salt or a bicarbonate salt in presence of any type of dilute acid, it can produce a salt according to the acid we have taken, and it can produce carbon dioxide also. If we take sodium carbonate, this is a carbonate kind of salt, we will get sodium sulfate as we have taken H2SO4. If we take HCl, then we should get here NaCl. Okay, but we have taken H2SO4, so we are getting here Na2SO4 and carbon dioxide and water. And if we take NaHCO3, which is a kind of bicarbonate salt, as it is known as sodium bicarbonate or sodium hydrogen carbonate, it will give us sodium bisulfate, okay, NaHSO4, and carbon dioxide and water. So these four reactions show us the acidic property of the H2SO4. Next property is oxidizing property. Okay, H2SO4 is oxidizing in nature and it can act as one strong oxidizing agent. Now to prove this, we can show the reaction with carbon and sulfur, and we can also use HBr, that is hydrobromic acid, and also HI, that is hydroiodic acid. Okay. So if we take carbon and if we use H2SO4 as hot and concentrated, then we will get sulfur dioxide, we will get carbon dioxide and water. And if we take sulfur here, so then we will get sulfur dioxide as the main component. Okay. In the previous reaction, we have carbon as the non-metal, so we have the both kind of oxides. Okay, carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide both, but we have taken here sulfur, and from sulfuric acid we will get also sulfur dioxide, and from sulfur we will get also sulfur dioxide. So together we will get here 3SO2 and water, and for both the cases we have to take here hot and concentrate H2SO4. Okay. And in next two reactions, here we have to take just concentrate H2SO4. Okay. If we take concentrate H2SO4 in case of HBr, we will get bromine, sulfur dioxide and water, and if we take concentrate H2SO4 with HI, that is hydroiodic acid, we will get the iodine, sulfur dioxide and water. Okay. So using any one of these four reactions, we can show or we can prove the oxidizing property of sulfuric acid. Property of H2SO4 is its dehydrating property. H2SO4, obviously concentrate H2SO4 can act as a very good dehydrating agent. That means if we add concentrate H2SO4 to a compound which can which is containing water molecules, then concentrate H2SO4 can absorb the molecules of water from the compound. Okay, suppose we have sugar. Okay, that is C22H this is C12H22O11. Okay, C12H22O11, and in presence of concentrate H2SO4, it can absorb the components of water molecule. That means this hydrogen and oxygen will be absorbed, and together from this 22 hydrogen and 11 oxygen atoms, we can get 11 molecules of water which will be absorbed by this concentrate H2SO4, and the remaining part is this 12 carbon atoms. Okay. So if we add concentrate H2SO4 to sugar, then we can see that the remaining is black. Okay, as the remaining is the carbon only, and the water is get dissolved within the concentrate H2SO4, so the remaining will looks like black kind of sticky material which is just carbon only. Okay. Next property is the decomposition. Concentrate sulfuric acid can produce sulfur dioxide. Okay, sulfur dioxide has a smell like burning sulfur. Okay, this is known as pungent type of smell. Okay, pungent type of smell. Pungent smell of burning sulfur. Okay, along with oxygen and water. So this we will get from concentrate H2SO4. Now if we see the reaction patterns of H2SO4 with these metals like aluminium, zinc and copper, we can see that with aluminium, hot and concentrate sulfuric acid, can produce aluminium sulfate. Sulfur dioxide is very common for sulfuric acid. If we take hot and concentrate sulfuric acid, then sulfur dioxide is the common product, and water molecules. Now if we take zinc with dilute H2SO4, then we will get zinc sulfate and hydrogen gas. Okay. If we take concentrate acid, then we will get sulfur dioxide, but if we take dilute acid, then we will get hydrogen gas. Okay. And if we take again hot and concentrate acid for zinc, in the last reaction we have taken this for aluminium. Now if we take this for zinc, we will get the same sulfur dioxide and same water molecules, but the salt will be different as we have taken here the different type of metal. If we take aluminium, we will get aluminium sulfate. If we take zinc, then we will get zinc sulfate. Okay. Now the last case, copper. Copper does not react any kind of dilute acid except nitric acid. Copper does not react with dilute hydrochloric acid. Copper does not react with dilute sulfuric acid. Copper only react with dilute nitric acid. So if we take here hot and concentrate sulfuric acid, then we will get copper sulfate, sulfur dioxide and water. In every case, water will produce as the water vapor. Okay, and the salt is produced according to the metal we have taken. Okay, and as I mentioned that sulfur dioxide has a smell, is known as pungent smell of burning sulfur, and in every reactions we have to write the balanced reaction. Okay. Now the identification of sulfuric acid, that means how can I identify that this acid is sulfuric acid. So to show this or to prove this, we can take barium chloride solution. Okay. Suppose we have a container where there is an acid. Okay. Now if we add barium chloride solution to this acid, and if it produce a kind of white precipitate which is almost insoluble in any acids and bases, then we can say that this acid is H2SO4, because in presence of barium chloride solution, H2SO4 can produce BaSO4, that is barium sulfate. Okay, and it is white. Barium sulfate is it can create white precipitate, and along with barium sulfate there will be hydrochloric acid. Barium sulfate is insoluble in hydrochloric acid, and it is almost insoluble in any type of acids. Okay, so it is considered as the insoluble salt. So this barium sulfate which can give the white precipitate which is insoluble in the medium, then we can conclude that the experimental acid is H2SO4. So if it is asked that how one can show the presence of H2SO4, then we have to tell that if we add barium chloride solution to the medium, and if we get white precipitate which is almost insoluble in any medium, then we can conclude that yes, the acid within the container is H2SO4. And to show this, we have to write this equation also. Okay, and this downward arrow is given here to show the precipitation. Okay, to show the precipitation, this downward arrow is given, and to show, if we give any kind of upward arrow, then it means gas is released. Okay, generally we write SO2, beside SO2 we give a upward arrow, and upward arrow shows that SO2 is gaseous in nature, and downward arrow is given to show the precipitation. Okay, so this is all the chemical properties of H2SO4. We will learn the chemical properties of hydrochloric acid, that is HCl. So if we start with acidic property of hydrochloric acid, we can see here that hydrochloric acid can react with aluminium hydroxide to produce aluminium chloride and water. Okay, and if we take carbonate salt with hydrochloric acid, as I have mentioned earlier in case of H2SO4, where we can see that if we take H2SO4, then the salt would be CaSO4, and here we have taken hydrochloric acid, then the salt, that is why is calcium chloride, that is CaCl2, and as I have taken carbonate salt, so it will give us carbon dioxide, and water is an obvious product here. Okay, so if I want to show the acidic property of hydrochloric acid, we can write any of these two examples. Next is reducing property. We know that sulfuric acid has an oxidizing property, but hydrochloric acid is reducing in nature. Okay, how we can show this? If we take manganese dioxide, that is MnO2, with hydrochloric acid, it will produce MnCl2, that is manganese chloride, chlorine gas will be found to be evolved, and water molecules. Okay, if we take potassium dichromate. K2Cr2O7 means potassium dichromate, and the solution of potassium dichromate is orange. Okay. So if I add this solution to the hydrochloric acid solution, then we will get the chloride salt of these metals separately. We have potassium here, so we will get potassium chloride. We have chromium, we will get chromium trichloride, and chlorine is obvious here. In case of H2SO4, sulfur dioxide, that is SO2, was an obvious product, and if we use HCl, then chlorine is the obvious product, and water is also an obvious product here. So the color change we can find here, that is orange to CrCl3. This is dark green in color. Okay. So the color change will be found orange to green. The next reducing property we can explain by using KMnO4. KMnO4 means potassium permanganate, which is violet in color. Okay. And if we add hydrochloric acid to potassium permanganate solution, we will get here also the chloride of this metal separately. That means we have potassium, so we will get potassium chloride. We have manganese, we will get manganese chloride, and chlorine and water. So here the color change take place, that is violet to colorless. As manganese chloride is colorless, so the color change that we can see here, which is violet to colorless. Okay. So by using any of these three reactions, we can explain the reducing property of hydrochloric acid. And the last thing is reactions with this metal, aluminium, zinc and copper. If we take hydrochloric acid, obviously this will be dilute hydrochloric acid, because dilute acids can produce hydrogen gas. Okay, so with aluminium it will produce aluminium chloride and hydrogen gas. Now if we take zinc instead of aluminium, the same product we will find, that is zinc chloride and hydrogen gas. And if we take copper here, as I mentioned before, that copper does not react with dilute HCl or dilute H2SO4. So we have to take here concentrate acid, concentrate hydrochloric acid in presence of air. If we not add oxygen or air in the reaction medium, this reaction will not going to happen. Okay, so first we have to take concentrate acid, and second in the air medium or in the oxygen medium. Then it will give us cupric chloride, that is CuCl2, and water. Okay, so these are the chemical properties of HCl. And the last one is the identification of HCl. Now how we can identify HCl? Identification. Suppose I have a container, and within this container I have an acid, and if within this acid I add silver nitrate solution, that is AgNO3 solution, and if it produces a white precipitate which is soluble in excess ammonium hydroxide, then I can conclude that this acid is HCl. Okay, what I have told, that suppose I have a container and an unknown acid. To this acid I have added silver nitrate solution, and then I get a white precipitate, and this precipitate is soluble only in excess ammonium hydroxide. Then I can conclude that this unknown acid is HCl. So what is happening here actually? In presence of HCl, AgNO3 produce AgCl. Okay, AgCl and HNO3. Okay, this AgCl generates the white precipitate. This white precipitate is due to the production of silver chloride, and this silver chloride is basically insoluble in nitric acid medium. So if we add this precipitate to excess amount of ammonium hydroxide, excess ammonium hydroxide can soluble this precipitate. Okay, then it will be soluble. in this medium, and it will give us a clear transparent solution. So we can conclude that this unknown acid is HCl. Okay, so these are the chemical properties of hydrochloric acid. So today we have done the chemical properties of hydrochloric acid and sulfuric acid. Next day we will start the chemical properties of nitric acid, then sodium hydroxide, the industrial applications of these chemicals, and pH and the other related things to this chapter. Okay, thank you.
Thanks for watching. Leave a like and comment. Subscribe. And do share the video among your friends.